Hello, this is BJ and welcome to another edition of Read It Again. Just finished up school. Today was the last day of the school year. So I figured I'll just go for a little walk and walk around town and share a little bit about the next book we're going to be doing on Read It Again. Thank you for joining me on this. We will see what's got coming up ahead. So about 20 years ago, give or take, I was in a Barnes & Noble with a friend, and while we were there, we saw on the table in front of us, the person before us had left a 365-day horoscope. And so this was basically, no matter what your birthday was, there was, I can't hold it that way, sorry. No matter what day your birthday was, there was a horoscope for your birthday for the next coming year. So I turned to the friend that was with me and I asked them, when is your birthday? And then I opened to a random page and started reading that random page. And my friend that was with me was like, well, yeah, I can see how that kind of fits when we finished. But then I told him that wasn't your birthday. And it was a random page. And we laughed about that a little bit. So then I turned to his real page and started reading the day next to it. And once again, he's like, no, that definitely fits better. That definitely fits better. And once again, we weren't reading his day. Now, from my perspective, this is what horoscopes always are like. They are intentionally vague and intentionally oblique in the writing so that people can pick and choose and grab a little piece here and grab a little piece there and say, yeah, that really fits me. And they're interpreting it however they want. And you're supposed to live but based off directives that are given to you that mean nothing. You can interpret it however you want. And that's really, it's garbage. Now, the book I'm talking about today in some ways that's wiggling way too much. All right. The book that I'm talking about today in some ways reminds me of that because it is intentionally vague. And so different people can look at the same portion of the same passage from this book and get different meanings from it. However, this was intended to do that. This book was intended to do that to make you think. It was intended to do that not to teach, but rather to get people to think. And the book I'm talking about today is the Tao Te Ching by Lao Zhu. This is a very ancient, very old book. And what we're going to do, if anyone tries to say this is what the Tao Te Ching, this is what the Tao Te Ching is really all about, they didn't understand that book because it was intentionally created so that people would think and foster ideas rather than be taught by the book. And so that's really what we're going to do today. What I have is when I read through the book, I grabbed a bunch, there's only a couple here, one second. A bunch of quotes that I pulled from the book. And so I'm going to walk around town, and every now and then I'm going to stop and pull out one of those quotes and talk about that quote and see whatever ideas that quote pulls out of me, or whatever thoughts that quote pulls out. That's what we're going to do, because I feel like this is the only true way you can do a book review about Tao Te Ching, because you can't really say it's teaching this or it's saying that, because if you're doing that, you're not understanding the book. The whole idea is to think and to let the book foster ideas. And so that's what we're going to do today. So enjoy the ride. So I'm still here at Kavaklik Park, and I pulled my first card. Oh, can't see that. Let's get in the shade. The wise man is the one who knows what he doesn't know. Now, here I am, like I said, I'm at Kavaklik Park. Now, in front of me, to the right, over in this direction, there is, it's called Kiralik Mahalasi, or it's the name of that part of town. However, behind me, and to the right, and I'll turn in a second when I'm past this tree, behind me and to the right, this area here, behind on the other side of this playground, is an area called Oretmanevleri Mahalasi. Now that really means teacher's house community. Okay? Now I know literally hundreds of teachers here in Gaziantep, and I have been to probably dozens of different houses, teachers' houses, and not a single teacher that I have ever met lives in teacher's house district. So why do they call it teacher's house district? I mean, everybody lives everywhere else, but no teacher lives in teacher's house district. I have no idea why this is the case. And if anybody does know, please fill me in, because I must be the wise man who knows what he doesn't know. Do the difficult things where they are easy. Do the great things while they are small. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. This actually is a quote that I pulled from Loju when I was beginning a blog I started about 10 years ago called The Riverwalk. Now, when I started that blog, I really had no intentions of doing much more than just sharing my story and sharing not really my story. It was a daily devotional type blog that I was doing. And I just wanted to look at scripture and pass along what it said. So I just started doing it. I had no idea at that time that by the time I let it start going inactive, I'd have over 600,000 views and I'd have over 25,000 followers. That was just, it happened. And a lot of times, when we're walking through life and when we're going through life, we are just wondering, once this happens, or once I'm ready to do this, or once that happens, then I'm going to begin doing this other thing, or once I achieve this goal, or once I get this amount of money, then I'm going to start doing such and such. But that's not how we live life. That's not how we should be doing life. If you have a dream, if you have a goal, just take your first step. Just start doing it. Walk out what you can. Dream your big dreams, but at the same time, take the steps that you know you are able to take in that moment. Don't wait until you think you can take all of the steps. Just take the steps you can right where you are. to understand the nature of things. To understand the limitation of things, desire them. I'm combining the last one and this one into a story about a little bit about my past. And right behind me you can see Senko Mall, probably the biggest of the 3 malls here in Gaziantep. But anyways, one second, there we go. But anyways, I've always been one that I pray best when I'm walking, and I've always been a pacer or a walker during my prayer times. So I've been doing that for pretty much forever. However, in New York, wintertime is not very convenient to be walking outside. So one year I decided that I'm going to start walking inside the mall and do my prayer time as a mall walker. Now, at the time I was probably in my young 20s, and most mall walkers are a little bit older than that, but that wasn't the reason I stopped very shortly after I began. The reason I stopped very shortly after I began was because I very quickly realized that being a mall walker isn't conducive to prayer time, or praying, walking through the mall isn't very conducive to that, especially for a boy like me who's got ADD. Because I was constantly looking at the things in this store, and I was constantly examining what was in the different stores and desiring these things. And I've never really been very materialistic, but something I've learned is you tend to desire what you're exposed to. I'm never going to want to watch a TV show until I've seen a couple episodes of that TV show. I'm not going to care about it until I've seen a bit of it, because once you're exposed to something, then you begin to desire it. But at the same time, like they were saying, to know the limitations of a thing is to desire it. And this kind of pulls me back into, wow, it's busy out here today. This pulls me back into Christmas. And how many times as a young child did you go through that catalog, or did you make out your list of these are the things that I want for Christmas? And then sometimes the worst possible thing that could happen is that you get those things that you're talking about. Because once we have something, we realize that the desire for it is more than the reality. And once we get something, and once we've owned something, that desire tends to fade away. So one of my all-time favorite book series is The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. And The Wheel of Time really does borrow a lot from Taoism. In fact, the Flame of Tar-Valon and the Dragon Fang that are two of the very common symbols in that book are the yin and the yang, which is Taoism. That's where that comes from. The light and the dark, or the good and the bad. And there's the balance and the combination of these two things. And Taoism really is probably one of the first or earliest religions that really talked about the duality, that good and evil necessarily coexist. Now, as Christians, we know that this is not true. In fact, oftentimes many people ask, if God is all powerful and God is all good, how can there be evil? But in reality, evil doesn't exist. Now, it exists, but not really. The same way heat and cold. I can experience something that is cold, and I can experience something that is hot, but cold really doesn't exist. All cold is the absence of heat. Now, as a young boy, I'm standing in front of a pole here. As a young boy in a New York winter, I did what probably every young boy does at one point or another. I licked a frozen pole. Now, there is no way when I'm experiencing the pain of the cold of that pole, you could convince me that cold does not exist. But cold does not exist. All cold is the absence of heat. In the same way, all evil is the absence of good. There are two things in the world, and there is doing the will of God and not doing the will of God. All evil is a result of, in one form or another, not doing the will of God. Evil in itself is not an entity. It is not an existence. It does not exist. No matter how much Zoo would say, for some things to be beautiful, others must be ugly. No, that's not true. For some things to be good, others must be evil. No, that's not true. Evil only appears to exist because the good isn't appearing on the scene.
Hoş geldiniz.